Hello and welcome to this round 13 here at GP Turin. We're going to get another chance to get a look at Lucas Blahon's kind of sweet-looking mono-white deck. But Matej Zadelkai, his opponent this round, a little bit different. He's Federico Del Basso, who's on green-white ramp. Not red-green ramp. We've not got the sort of Arrow Devastations, Kozilek's Returns, and so on. Fumigate is the big key draw to white. Lets you have mass removal in a slightly different way. In early doors, we see Selfless Spirit matching up against a Walking Ballista from Federico Del Basso.
Yeah, and I think this might be very complicated for Lucas Blahon because I think Federico's deck is like a mid-range breaker. Mid-range deck breaker, as in he's probably going to struggle against the really fast decks like Raminab Red, but he should be really well set against anything mid-rangey. And Lucas's deck is probably one of the most mid-rangey decks I've seen in the room.
Gift of Paradise there, being played by Federico Del Basso. His life total going up briefly to above 20. Meanwhile, Thought Not Seer coming down to join Eldrazi Displacer, and we see 2 copies of Fumigate, a World Breaker, another Gift of Paradise, and Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger.
Yeah, or Federico already taking one of those Fumigates, like, yeah, you take only one of these, and actually not looking that great for Federico. And Lucas's clock is going to increase quite a bit with the Thought Not Seer.
I guess that there's the issue that when your ramp deck doesn't draw quite enough ramp, it spells are very, very difficult to cast indeed.
And the good thing for Federico is that the fact that he does at least have 2 Fumigates. So even though if he doesn't draw a land next turn, he might be in trouble. But worst case scenario, he has the Gift of Paradise, which Lucas might be tempted to take here. He wants to keep Federico off of lands.
Yeah, basically with
mana,
the 3 lands that he has, because of Gift of Paradise, Federico already has access to 4 mana. As and when that next Gift of Paradise come down, that guarantees 5 mana, and his color fixing is spectacular at this point, which seems a little over the top considering that he is in fact a green-white deck. He typically is enchanting his deserts with these Gifts of Paradise. Obviously, while they can be sacrificed for a good effect, it does mean that he's never going to have to worry about taking damage off them when he taps them.
Yeah, so he does go for the Gift of Paradise. He's basically looking at Federico just not developing his board further with land and Fumigate in this regard. Yeah, you see how he has missed up. But he did draw a Weirding Wood. But the good thing for Lucas is that he has another Selfless Spirit in hand, so he can definitely protect his team from one of those Fumigates.
Yeah, Fumigate, key difference, gets to gain you a little bit of life as well when it's destroying creatures. But in this instance, if it's not destroying any creatures, that may just simply not work out.
Yeah.
And we saw in the last round Lucas Bahan gaining good value from Thought Not Seer, not just from being able to take a card from his opponent's hand, but from the information that he gained, letting him play around some of the key cards that were coming up from his opponent. And I can't help but think that once you know about 2 copies of Fumigate, that dramatically changes the manner in which you play the rest of the game.
Yep. Exactly. So here's the Selfless Spirit I mentioned. It's going to protect him from Fumigate. Also has a Walking Ballista to the board. Just adds more damage or more pressure.
Hour of Promise, the pickup here for Federico Del Basso. That will definitely be making 2 zombies regardless of which lands he fetches, because there are already 2 deserts in play. And Hour of Promise also means that he can fetch any land. So utility lands are a real key pickup for Del Basso here. He may be able to find a way of making his mana look particularly exciting after this Hour of Promise.
Yeah, he needs at least 1 desert because Hour of Promise triggers on having 3 deserts. So he already has 2, so he can only find. He only needs 1 more. So that's the Hash of Oasis, and goes for the Shrine of the Forsaken Gods.
Yeah, the Shrine will be important in him making sure that he can actually cast some of the big Eldrazi in hand. He's already got World Breaker and Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger just chilling out, getting ready to go. And Lucas Blahon's deck, while it's not got lots of really high-end threats, it has got a lot of mana sinks. So if, say, World Breaker starts blowing up lands, then it will mean that what Lucas can get going changes just a little bit. We might see at some point, for example, Eldrazi Displacer flickering that Thought Not Seer so that there can be additional cards stripped out of Del Basso's hand. Yes, Del Basso would get to draw a card when the Thought Not Seer leaves play, but then another card gets to get exiled when the Thought Not Seer comes back.
Yep.
There's Hash of Oasis. relatively sideline use, really, the giving your creature +3/+3, but occasionally you need to get that extra damage in, and it certainly will do some good work there.
Yeah, another interesting card that I don't think we see quite often enough is the one that is in Lucas's hand right now is the Spatial Contortion. You just don't see it being played that much. We've seen quite a bit of Warping Whale, which I can quite understand in this format. I think Lucas was thinking about playing already on one of the zombies and trying to get in for more damage, because the two zombies are quite problematic, as they can effectively they can be quite annoying when Lucas knows that there's some fumigates coming.
I mean, I guess that the Eldrazi Displacer can do a fairly good impression of casting Spatial Contortion if it's targeting zombies anyway. If a zombie gets removed by the flicker effect, it's not coming back.
Yeah, but
so
this is just in a way like a better use of mana. It allows Lucas just to bash in everything. He doesn't have to worry about using the flicker ability on the Displacer, because I think he still wants to put more pressure on the board, because he has a Selfless Spirit, which helps him protect himself from at least one of the fumigates.
So look, everything's coming in here. It looks like, I guess that the amount of damage being threatened means that blocking Walking Ballista not a reasonable option there. Federico del Basso taking a relatively large hit.
Yeah. Let's see what he can come up with. Federico will have some interesting options there, but he has to do at least something, because he's just taking a lot of damage fast. The problem with Fumigate, the card he has in his hand, that the wording is precisely destroy creatures. You gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way. So if Selfless Spirit gives everything indestructible for a turn, there's no life gain from Federico.
2, 4, 6, 7 mana here.
There's a World Breaker. At least that can destroy a Walking Ballista.
It feels like a relatively low impact World Breaker, all told. Even once the World Breaker is active, the Eldrazi Displacer still can flicker it to tap it down, so it may be that it's not going to be good enough here.
Yeah, Federico now realizing that I think his glance is firmly at the Displacer. He's doing the math. He knows it's 7. Plenty of damage on board for him.
This list that Lucas Blahon is playing is very, very similar to, if not identical to, the list that Corey Baumeister played to an undefeated finish yesterday in Washington, D.C. at the other GP. We will be switching across to the GP coverage over there once things have cleared up here in Turin. So get ready for a huge day of Magic. And here we see a big, big change to the board.
Yeah, Quarantine Field, very interesting. I think it's a one-of in Federico's deck.
So 6 mana, he's got 2 targets that he's going to be able to exile with this Quarantine Field. And these are, because it's exiled, they will not be able to be saved by Selfless Spirit. Follow-up play of a Thraben Inspector as well. Couldn't hurt, get a clue
nice
for
chump
later.
blocker.
So there's another Thought-Knot Seer in hand now for Lucas Blahon if he wants.
But he needs to figure out a way to win this, because another Walking Ballista. Ballista Central here. He's just going to try to win this with pinging. Look at that. That means that he's going. Federico's down to 4. Yeah, and then the ping from the block one, the ping from the unblocked one after combat, and then 2 from the one he just cast. That was exactly lethal. Very impressive play from Lucas Blahon.
Yeah, it turns out that you do not need to be a mono red deck to finish things off with effectively a bunch of burn.
Yeah, but I like the way he played it. He recognized the threat of the 2 fumigates, played the Selfless Spirit that helped him make his board bigger, and he just kept casting those small Walking Ballistas, which in the end, every single point of damage that he presented with these ballistas ended up mattering.
There were so many decision points for Lucas Blahon in that game. I think that's one of those games that I look at and I think, what proportion of players make it through that game in that way?
Yeah.
So each of these players now going to their sideboards, they're going to be figuring out what they want. While they're doing that, we're going to take a quick look at the standings here at GP Turin, see if we can get a feel for who's at the top of the standings. At the moment, there's just one player undefeated, that being Andrea Sonzogli. He is on the blue-white approach to the second Suns deck, and he's in our feature match area. We might get a chance to see a little bit of him in our time walk match soon enough. After that, just 4 players, even 1 win behind him, so he's in fantastic shape at this point in the tournament. Obviously, we've got a few rounds left to go. No one has locked up their top 8 just yet, but he's very, very close indeed. Bart van Etten still at 30 points. Simon Nielsen from Denmark at 30 points there. We can see Loic Labriand on mono red. He's managed to claw things back a little bit. He had a bit of a rough start to the day, but he's at 30 points now. Daniel Antonio, 30 points. As we move across onto our second page of standings, our 30-point players go all the way down to 27th. You can see Robin Dolar there at 22. Then we start moving on to the players on 29, 28, 27 points. 27 points, that means that they're at 9 and 3 after round 12. 3 losses means that they've not really got any more losses to give, and even at 3 losses, they might have to be a little bit hopeful if they're looking to make top 8. So when we move on to this next page here of our 27-pointers, Martin User, George Channing from the UK, Raul Porojan, there's a lot of good names here, but these are the players that are going to have to say, from now on, I need to win every match, and I need to kind of hope that my tiebreakers hold up.
Yeah, I mean, at X3, the best I can hope for is top 16 finish, which should be good enough for most 12 threes, even though it might not be enough for all of them, depending how things shake up, of course.
All right, well, let's have a little think about sideboarding here. We saw last round Lucas Blahon doing fantastic work with Serenity in his sideboard. Solemnity in his sideboard in order to stop tokens being put on things. That not likely to be so much of a factor here, but I'm sure that this is a deck that has a fair amount of options in terms of sideboarding. What do we think we might see from him this game?
Well, it's kind of interesting because he doesn't have that much for this particular matchup. His sideboard is some Sunscore Champions against Red, some Sky Sovereigns against some creature decks. But I think what is going to work well for him is Warping Whales, because they do counter those Fumigates, and it's one of the most threatening cards. But I think in general he's pretty well placed to fight against Fumigate as a card, because not only does he have Self-Spur Spirit, he's running 4 Archangel Avacynths in his main deck already, which are really neat against the Fumigate.
Lucas Blahon is in the luxurious position of being able to extend into Fumigate relatively safely a large proportion of the time, because he has so many different ways of dealing with the big mass removal spell. There we see it. Destroy all creatures. Gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way. Back in the good old days, Wrath of God cost 4 mana. As it turns out, 5 mana wipe the board is kind of the standard now, and it feels like a pretty sort of happy casting cost for it. You get the extra bonus of gaining a bit of life. Yes, there's not the no regeneration clause anymore, but you know what? When this format rotates very soon, there'll be no regeneration left in standard. Regeneration will be all done with.
Unless they print some new cards with regeneration, which is unlikely, though, judging by R&D's travels. But I want to touch on this because you said Fumigate, and we mentioned quite a bit. But I think Lucas's deck is quite well equipped to handle it. And you can see, because Archangel Avacyn enters the battlefield, creature control gain indestructible until end of turn. And not only that, but Lucas has ways to flip the Avacyn quite easily with the Self of Spirit or with something like Walking Ballista, which then makes his clock that much bigger.
Even with making Eldrazi Scion tokens with either his Spawning Bed or with Warping Whale will do it.
Yeah, that's true.
It's Archangel Avacyn, another one of those cards that's been around standard for a long time now. It's never not been good.
Yeah, it's just a solid card. Sometimes it's been on the periphery, but it's usually when the format was either quite a bit faster or there were just bigger things happening. So either going beneath it or going way above. But in the end, whenever the meta has settled into more of a mid-range meta, Archangel Avacyn has been really good. And Lucas has one in his hand.
All right. It looks like Lucas, again, with a hand with quite a few lands here, but he may well...
Yeah. 5 lands and Archangel Avacyn. Not keeping that one.
So Federico Del Basso, if in his head he was chanting 555, well, at this point, he might have to just start thinking in his head 444, because Lucas Blahon going down a lot of cards, and this kind of might open the door a little bit for the Italian player to win 2 on the bounce with his green-white ramp deck, or at least win this one.
We'll see. I wonder what Federico is up to. We don't have his deck list just yet available, but I'm curious to see how he chooses to fight this.
Both of these players are on decks that are kind of on the fringe of what a lot of people will have prepared for. Each getting to 10 and 2. Federico's deck, not one that I think is being represented by anyone else that I've seen in the room. But apparently Mana Ramp is a strategy that has proven particularly popular in Italy, and it's one that we weren't necessarily so surprised to see represented somewhere here in this field, even if we weren't quite sure who was going to be the person piloting it. So here we see the turn 1 Thraben Inspector from Del Basso. Lucas Blahon kept his 5, and we're going to see whether or not he's able to string something together with that.
He had a very tough decision. He had a plains on top that he was really thinking, because he has an Avacyn, he needs land anyway. The problem is that he has all plains. He has no way to cast the Thought Knots here, and actually drew another one right away. So he really needs a color source as soon as possible.
Weirding Wood there generating a clue, but also meaning that plains now taps for 2 mana of any one color.
And very slow start from Lucas. This is exactly what Federico wants to see. No pressure on the board. That can just ramp up nicely. If he has something like Hour of Promise here, that would be really good. But I think he's just going to go with a 2/2. No, okay, Regal Caracal. Okay, aggressive.
7 Power of Cats just entered the battlefield, and it's one of those cards that it's coming from sideboards all over the place in this format. You're generating a lot of threats. So some of the Approach of the Second Sun decks, this is one of their sideboard cards that they're looking to adjust their game plan a little bit. If opponents don't appear to have much in the way of straightforward removal, then Regal Caracal can be huge. As it stands, a Stasis Snare, getting rid of the leader cat. A cast out on the Stasis Snare, though, meaning that 2 more cat tokens coming into play when it returns.
Yep.
All of these cats are getting +1/+1 and lifelink, so that's going to be 4 damage to Lucas Blahon, 4 life gained by Federico Del Basso, and look at the army that Del Basso is working with now.
Yeah, and his life total is growing fast. And now Lucas has to go with a different plan, which is Archangel Avacyn and Walking Ballista. So he played the Archangel Avacyn, made his team indestructible, but it wasn't relevant. What was more relevant was the Walking Ballista. It was played for 0, which meant it died immediately. And now in the upkeep of Federico, the Archangel Avacyn is going to flip into Avacyn the Purifier. So let's see. Yeah, there we go. So 6/5 flyer, and it deals 3 damage to each other creature and each opponent.
I feel like there's a horrible meme about our Avacyn killing lots of cats here.
Yeah.
I don't want to know about it.
She just burned everything. Not just cats, everything. And it's a big creature on its own. Can do quite a bit of damage. I really like what Lucas did there.
She is quite literally the reverse of a crazy cat lady. She's a
yeah.
crazy lady, but she does not like cats.
Yeah, I think even a colorless source for Lucas found a Shafet Dunes, so he'll be able to start casting his Thought Knot Seers. Oh.
So Thought Knot Seer sees Gift of Paradise, Weirding Wood, Fumigate, and then 2 copies of Walking Ballista. Walking Ballista getting ever more potent as Federico Del Basso gets more lands in play. What do you think's the choice here, Mate?
I think it will be the Fumigate, yeah, as Federico goes for that one. Of course, because Lucas suddenly has a very big board, and all Federico has is more ramp. So looking pretty decent from Lucas. I mean, he mulliganed to 5, and he was really in a rough shape. Now Federico gets to cast a Gift of Paradise, at least gain some life back. And yeah, another kitty.
Another Regal Caracal.
Oh, Chad, I like this. Rich would be very proud. The cat's got purrified.
Wow. I give that one a B+.
Yeah, it's a solid B+. Thank you, Amish Car Bomb. Ooh, what a name! What a nickname!
All right, so we've got the Regal Caracal in play, flanked by those 2 kitty cats that it brought along, facing off against the horrors that are Avacyn the Purifier and Thought Knot Seer.
I don't know what's scarier: crazy anti-cat lady angel and with blood on her wings, or just a bunch of rabid cats.
There's nothing to say, but nothing to do with rabbit here. There's a wibbly wobbly monster on the board as well.
They look pretty savage. Let me put it that way. Especially the more Regal Caracals are there.
These are the revenge cats. They have to be a little bit savage. So Selfless Spirit coming down and some attacks here from Lucas Blahon. Cats versus Thought Not Seer. Selfless Spirit says, well, Thought Not Seer is going to stay alive. I don't know about those cats.
Yeah, let's see what you have. Okay, just...
Well, we knew about all of those cards.
Yep.
One of the 2 copies of Walking Ballista getting dealt with by Thought Not Seer. Both these players playing at a happy little pace here. Regal Caracal all by itself.
You know, if there's one thing that I like is I like watching Lucas play. He's just so crisp. Let me put it that way. And I'm not trying to be biased. I just like the way he like taps his mana, plays his spells. Ooh, look at that. It's a huge Walking Ballista taking down one of the Thought Not Seers.
Gets to draw a card, finds a Shrine of the Forsaken Gods for his trouble. Liking that one.
Yeah, I mean, he also has a Seagate Wreckage, which would allow him to start drawing into some relevant spells. But the problem is he's stuck with 2 Weirding Woods in his hand still, so he needs to play those out first. I mean, he does have a bunch of mana, and fortunately his kitties do have lifelink, so... Ooh, another Thought Not Seer. Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess that this plays into the Seagate Wreckage?
I guess. Okay, Sanctum of Ugin. I mean, if Frederico del Basso finds an Eldrazi, I mean, but he's under the gun, basically, with down to 10, just Avacyn dealing 6. Yeah, he just doesn't have anything. Lucas Blahon just crushes the green-white ramp of Frederico del Basso. Wow, and with so many mulligans, too.
Yeah, there was a mulligan to 5 for Lucas Blahon in that game. And still, in spite of that, Lucas just takes it down relatively quickly. 28 minutes left on the clock, all said and done. That a big win for Lucas Blahon, now advancing to 11-2 as we rocket through this tournament. Obviously, a few rounds still to go, but if he's aiming at top 8, then he's not a bad shot. We're going to get a chance to jump across and see one of our other tables now. We're going to get a chance to see Oscar Jones against Daniel Antonio. Daniel picking up the first game with Teamer Energy in this Teamer Energy mirror. And we'll get a chance to see how this one plays out as they're just kicking things off now after a scry from Daniel.
Looks like Oscar Jones is a little nervous here as he plays that Attune with Ether. I mean, 10-2. Just needing basically, I think, 2 more wins and then you can probably draw in. So... this is almost the win and in. It's a win and a win and in.
A win and a win and an in.
Yeah.
I like it. So we have Ether Hub coming down for Daniel Antonio. That his first source of energy after the Attune with Ether coming on the other side of things from Oscar Jones. Both these guys kind of chilling out a little bit in terms of playing threats in the early game. If someone can get down an early... creature, they may be able to make something happen here. Rogue Refiner having to spend an energy, but ultimately making 2 upon it coming into play, and Antonio, of course, drawing a card also. Looks like we might see a Rogue Refiner on the other side of things too. Oscar Jones winning the energy race.
So far, his mana's just a tad better than Daniel's, who has to spend energy from the Ether Hub to play his blue Casting Course cards. Oh, I like this card. Tireless Tracker has been in the format for a really long time and has proven time and time again just to be really, really solid.
Well, it rewards you for doing something that you want to be doing anyway, which is playing lands, and it rewards you in a way that's probably the best thing in Magic, draws you extra cards by giving you those clues that you can investigate with. And then in and of itself, it becomes a relatively sizable threat. There's really nothing not to like there.
Yeah, I think Oscar Jones went to tap 4 mana to play Chandra, but only after he tapped the mana didn't realize that it's actually a Chandra Flamecaller, not a Torch of Defiance. So he had to change plans a little bit there, and he went for an Abrade on the Tireless Tracker. I don't think you can let that sit around on the table for too long.
Yeah, the Abrade, a perfect answer at the point that he had it, but if he'd left things too long, he may have found that the Tireless Tracker either grew so big that it couldn't get hit by it, but more realistically, even in the meantime, just set Daniel Antonio up to draw more cards, and that's one of the ways that ultimately this game's going to be won, is by someone being able to eke out a more sustainable advantage.
Yeah, that's exactly how this goes. It usually, this is kind of a strange game, and a mirror match, because usually the game is really one-sided, where one player has the initiative and it's really hard for the other player to come back, or these end up in like ground stalls, where both players have just a big board. Here comes a Glorybringer shooting down the Roller Vulture, so it's still two 1/1 Thopters jump in, and ooh, look at that.
So that is an exalted Glorybringer. Just there's the
Just to
token in case there was
clarify,
any confusion there.
And now Daniel Antonio, he has a Chandra that he can use to kill the Glorybringer. If he wants to do it now, he doesn't have to. He can wait a little bit. He also has a Sky Sovereign. Nothing to kill though, just yet. So I think he's quite priced into playing a Chandra here.
Yeah, it's nice to have options. In principle, he could play the Chandra and look at doing something other than killing the Glorybringer this turn.
The one risky part is like if you plus first, and your opponent plays another Glorybringer, like the following turn you can't really. It's gonna have one loyalty, so you can't minus it to kill any of the two Glorybringers, and you might be in a little bit of trouble against the two Flying Dragons. But to be fair, in any case, having two Glorybringers on the battlefield is already really good, no matter what your opponent is doing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a matter of figuring out what the best case scenario is if you do tick up.
Yeah.
He's just saying, well, my best case is I'm going to just draw a card, plus 2 mana, use that to activate my clue, swing in for 2, and then wait to use Chandra next turn, hopefully.
Yeah. He also drew into a Harness Lightning, which is going to give him even more decisions on the following turn, because he could use... I forgot about that.
Yeah, in the battle of Chandra versus Chandra, it turns out the one that costs 6 has a little bit of an edge, at least when it's coming down second and you've got a bit of opportunity to do things. But
he has a Sky Sovereign to kill it, to shoot it down at least. But now the Glorybringer stays on the battlefield. As I mentioned, he used it to plus rather than to minus, and this is the result of it. I'm not saying it's a bad play, it's just something that something doesn't work out as well as you'd hope.
So what's Oscar Jones got as his follow-up here?
I think I see Rona's in his hand, which is quite nice. I think he has at least one more Abrade. So I think he's going to end up playing Rona's and possibly abrading the Sky Sovereign.
Yeah, even though the Sky Sovereign right now doesn't have great targets, sooner or later it will be active and able to do problems. And the thing is that it's just a gigantic monster when it's attacking as well.
Alright, so there's 2 energy now for Daniel, who I think also has a Bristling Hydra.
Looks like that's the option. Here it comes to save the day.
The ability is on the stack, and Oscar Jones could kill with the Harness Lightning if he wanted to. But then it also means that he's not playing a Braid on the Sky Sovereign, so he really has to be careful here. Okay, so gonna go for the Harness Lightning in response to the energy generating trigger. I think Daniel has some interesting plays as well here. Like he could theoretically play a Harness Lightning so that he generates the energy to protect his Hydra. Yes, so he can crew,
Harness Lightning to generate energy and put some damage on Glorybringer.
Just one is enough. Yes, that's a really sweet play. So it's still on the stack, the Harness Lightning from Oscar Jones. Now, Daniel Antonio is going to Harness Lightning and deal 1 damage to Glorybringer, I would say, so that he's going to go up to 4 total. Yep. And then, once that resolves, he's going to give it Hexproof and a +1/+1 counter. And with the crewed Sky Sovereign, now swing for a huge chunk and finishing off the Glorybringer. That turned up really well for Daniel Antonio.
Daniel Antonio has had a couple of turns in a row where he has made some very cool plays.
Yes.
The first play with choosing to go with an alternate option on Chandra, I think is not necessarily the one that everyone would have gone for, and actually it didn't quite work out for him. The fancy play that happened on the next turn turned out great.
Yep. And he just completely punished Oscar Jones for tapping out, and that the Sky Sovereign not only attacked, but it also dealt 6 damage. It finished off the Glorybringer. It was just all a big turn for Daniel. And Oscar Jones could have played a little more conservatively and just kept up the Abrade for the Sky Sovereign, which would mean that Daniel Antonio would have had to spend the Harness Lightning to actually kill the Glorybringer and go a bit lower on energy anyway. All right. So I think there's the Whirl Virtuoso, and then Oscar Jones pumped the Virtuoso so that he has full power to allow Ronas to attack. But there's still the Sky Sovereign. And with Oscar Jones tapped out again.
I mean, there's 7 energy for that Well of Virtuoso, so he's able to make a relatively happy amount of blockers here.
That is true. And yeah, Daniel Antonio has to consider his life total, of course. He's down to 7, and Ronas is not messing around.
Yeah, Ronas. Tidy little package, got a few different options that are relatively impressive on the board. The fact that you can give trample in addition to +2 power, potentially a bit of a pain here for Daniel Antonio.
Yeah, at least you can't. It can't target itself. That would be, not only does it have that touch and indestructible, but if it would be able to give itself trample, that would be very, very good.
Well, I mean, it's not very benevolent to just bestow things on yourself.
I mean, they can be jerks, you know. Like.
All right, what have we got here? Is this an attune? There's not too many spells for just a single green. There we go.
Not much to spend the energy on. I still wonder if I missed the card in Oscar Jones' hand and if it's really in a braid. And the question is, how many times can he pump? I think only 2 times. So that means he can make... Yeah, he's just a bit short on damage. He can pump up a Thopter to a 5/1 and swing, if I'm not mistaken. He can also swing with the Ronas, which would then be chump blocked, of course, by another top token. But yeah, it's just not enough damage because Daniel Antonio smartly kept back 2 Thopter tokens. Just a pass now, was it?
It's looking a little that way. Antonio, 2 cards in hand. He has an Abrade.
Ooh.
Confiscation coup.
Hello. That's a card.
It certainly is, and it looks like Antonio's kicking things off with just trying for the straightforward attack. That finds the Abrade from Oscar Jones, but it does now mean that Jones is out of cards in hand, so whatever comes next will simply resolve, and it's a confiscation coup. And yes, we've already established Ronas the Indomitable, pretty powerful.
Yeah, Oscar Jones like taking his cards like, yep, this is bad. Yes, he's gonna take that. He's gonna pump up his creatures a few times for this turn, but I think Oscar Jones is in heap of trouble. You can see by the way he's just banging his land that he doesn't have much going on to help there.
Steal it right back. That'd be pretty good. I mean, I don't know if it'd be good enough, but it'd be a start. It would.
I think he would have to spend way too much mana to do it, and he wouldn't be able to attack or block with it. And the Bristling Hydra is then quite threatening. All right.
Got to send a message.
Decision time again for Daniel. He has to decide, okay, do I have to block 1 or 2? Yeah, just blocks 1. Stop the trade.
There's a Whirl of Virtuoso.
Oh, yeah, but if it's just the Whirl of Virtuoso, it doesn't matter because Daniel will just give his creatures trample, and it should be enough to take the game and the match. Yeah, here they swing. Yeah, and Oscar Jones like, yeah. That coup was a nice rip, but overall, the play from Daniel Antonio with generating energy with Harness Lightning.
It's so rare
awesome
that you see the Harness Lightning that deals a small amount of damage and generates a small amount of energy. That's like, it's not that common that you see the one that just generates energy, but this is the coolest mode in many respects of Harness Lightning that got him into the position to be able to win this one.
Yeah. So he gives the Hydra trample, then kills off the Whirl of Virtuoso, and that's just enough trample damage coming in for Daniel Antonio. So he moves up to 11-2. The Cypriot making work of this mirror match.
Lovely stuff for him. That's the end of our live magic here from round 13 of Grand Prix Turin. We'll have more Time Walk magic for you soon enough, right after these messages.